adapter. That's a legit headset, dude. Where'd you get that?
It's amazing what you can get on Amazon, isn't
it? Yeah, it is, man. The microphone makes you look like you're in like the tower or something.
Yeah, you told me to make sure I had a headset, I had a microphone, I had good Wi-Fi.
All those things.
I'm here in my office, so hopefully it works out.
Nice, man. Nice. Were you supposed to be going to Pittsburgh today, or is that tomorrow?
No, we're supposed to be today, but Lisa is heading up to Maine tomorrow. She's leaving at 10, so I'm going to just fly out to Pittsburgh tomorrow at 10, so that way I can drive her to the airport. She can go to Maine for the whole week with her sister and cousins. I go back to Pittsburgh, and I come back Monday. So it'll be a quick trip for me, but that it makes life easier. So.
Yeah, nice. Cool, man. Cool, dude. Well, I just want to get right into it, man. I wanted to, this would be like a little bit of a trial episode and a little bit of just a free for all in some ways, because I feel like fitness is one of those things that you and I have a shared passion for, and we recognize the importance of it. It gets us excited. We love to do it. It's a big part of our lives, and it's also something that we see being really important for the quality and the quality and quantity of our life. And it's something that I think you and I are both really excited to share with people whenever we have the opportunity to. So, yeah, man, I just wanted to take today as an opportunity to riff on all things fitness, specifically for guys as we get into, I almost said our later years, dude. I just turned 34 a couple days ago. I was thinking about not wearing these glasses in this podcast, but then I realized I couldn't read a single freaking thing on my laptop. So I'm like, I gotta wear them. I don't have a choice. But yeah, man, I wanted to kind of ask you, as somebody who is super fit, Geno, how old are you?
65.
65, man. That's awesome. Dude, yeah, I wanted to ask you, as somebody who is super fit and been in fitness for a long time and made it a big part of your lifestyle, like, how do you see it as, like, what's its role in your life now? Like, what keeps you going into it? Because I mean, you've done all the workouts, you've done all the dieting, you've done everything. Like, what keeps you interested in it? What keeps you engaged in it? What keeps you doing it? For 65 years.
Well, I've been doing it hard for 45 years, since I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 20 years was easy. As you know, it's easy to maintain shape before 20.
Yeah.
I think my biggest reason is it preserves my capacity to do what I want to keep doing for the rest of my life. As you go through different chapters of your life, having kids move away, kids get married, you got grandkids coming, everything changes. But it's just that preservation that I can always keep doing what I've always been able to do. And it's the old adage is you don't know what you miss until it's gone. Mm-hmm. And through all those decades that I've been doing it, I've had 6 or 7 different operations. I've had little minor concussions. I've had twists and pulls. And you realize how crappy it is not to be able to jump out of bed and do what you want to do. Yeah. So and that's what I think I've talked to you before about, was motivation's cool, but it doesn't get you out of bed when you're hurting. It's that dedication that I want to keep doing what I've always been doing. And I'm not trying to stay young. I'm just trying to preserve what I can keep doing and slow down the aging process. And so far I've been lucky and blessed and stubborn enough to keep doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and you're definitely still doing that. I think that's super important too, because that's something that really hasn't become, I don't want to say relevant to me, but I mean, I just turned 34. And so really, like, what I've been doing in fitness, or what I've been doing with exercise or training or whatever it is, since I was like 18. I mean, it wasn't until like maybe 3 years ago, when I'd really turned 30, that I was like, oh, I can actually start to feel not only what I have been doing to my body, but what I also haven't been paying attention to. Like, if I go to touch my toes, like, is my back feel tight? Or I go to do this, this side lunge or whatever, and I'm not able to get even a third of the way down. And I see these people, demoing the exercise, and they can get all the way down. I'm like, man, I'm missing all these capacities in my body. And I started to feel too, like, I would go out to do the stuff that I really enjoy doing, which for me is, I love being competitive in intramural sports. I'm not a professional athlete. I never had the potential, I don't think, to be one, but I love like going out and competing in volleyball or pickleball or whatever it is. Like I love doing that. And if I get into that moment and I'm like, man, I don't trust my knee or I don't trust my back or I'm worried about my hamstring or my groin pulling or something, like it just makes it not as fun, not as fun. You don't want to be worried about that kind of stuff. And then too, man, you wake up the next day and you're so sore that you can hardly freaking move. It's like, what's the point of being able to do all this stuff in the gym or, focusing on doing stuff in the gym if you get outside in quote unquote, the real world, then you can't do what you want to do, like you can't function on the day to day. You're getting up out of bed with pain and you're moving in a way that just it doesn't feel good. So I think that's a great point, man, is like being able to use fitness and being able to use fitness as a tool to allow you the capacity to do more with your life and to do the stuff that you actually really enjoy doing.
Absolutely. But you were close to being a pro guy when you were biking, weren't you?
No, I wish. I mean, I say I wish, but no, there were people that were just even in our local group, which is Southeast Louisiana, Mississippi, that were so much faster than me. It wasn't even funny. There's some people that are they just got lungs as big as their body. They could go forever. But no, I mean, I did love cycling when I was doing it, but it was never, I don't think, ever going to be a thing for me long term. But yeah, no, that was a fun time period, man. So yeah, I think that's a good point too. And I was thinking about this the other day, man, because on this kind of topic, sometimes I think because I'm thinking about fitness so much, it's my job, it's part of my lifestyle, it's a big piece of what I do. I'm like, am I taking this too seriously? And then I really thought about it, man, and I really don't think that I am. And the reason I say that is because it's it really is a tool. Like investing is a tool to be able to live the financial life that you want in the future, right? Or reading and developing a set of skills and building a set of skills now as a way to create a career future for yourself, right? All these things that we're doing in our daily life today are building a foundation for us or allowing us to explore the possible future for ourselves later on. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, man, picture this with me, right? You're a dad, okay? Maybe you haven't been exercising as much as you need to, and you develop some back pain or some knee pain, right? And your kid is on the floor. Kid's on the floor, they're playing, and they say, "Daddy, come play with me." And then you think about going to do it, but you pause to get down on the floor because you're like, man, if I get down on the floor and I tweak something a little bit, am I going to be able to get up off the floor, right? Like my back hurts. It's not going to be very easy for me to get off the floor. Or like you're at your kid's soccer game and you want to run down the sideline because they're going to score a goal, right? And you hesitate because you're like, man, I haven't run in a while and my knee used to bother me when I ran. I started to really think about it and I'm like, man, this is such an important, I think, thing for guys to see is that hesitation that happens in those moments literally takes you out of the ability to experience those things in your life. And I think fitness, training, whatever you want to call it, is the key to remove that hesitation and to ensure that your physical abilities do not limit you in the things that you want to be able to do with your life, And I just think I don't think you can make too big of a deal out of that. Like it's not just biceps and abs. Like this is literally what you can physically do and what you're physically capable of experiencing with your life. And I just think honestly, man, that's one of the most important things that you can put your attention and energy into,
Oh, to me, that's 100%. But before I go any further, let me tell you, you will never not think about pulling a hamstring when you start running. Because if you've done it once, you know it sucks, and you're probably going to do it again. But I just had to bring that up because that's something. But you mentioned a word prior, investing, and that is exactly what you're doing. I mean, most young people don't have money, but they have health on average. And as you get older, you get more wealth and you lose your health because you've invested in your job and investing in collecting money. And to me, what you said there is my whole life was I always wanted to invest time because I understood even early on because I had kids and I did a bunch of other stuff and I was active outside and loved the trail and climb trees is that health is wealth. And as you get older, it becomes more and more. So I think a lot of the younger people don't realize how fortunate you are to be young and healthy, and you're working so hard on the job to get wealth. And if you ask older people, my age or older, many of them would give up much of their wealth to have that health back again. So there's that balance is you have to figure out there's a balance between investing financially, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. You got to have that investment time. And I just find it hard when people tell me they don't have time to do this because the old adage is 24 hours, 1,440 minutes is one day.
Yeah.
2%, 1/2 hour. To me, that's pittance, but 2%. I'm a 4%er. My minimum was always 4%er, basically an hour a day. I'm willing to give up a little bit less sleep, a little bit TV time, whatever else I'm doing to go take care of my body because I understood that that's going to compound as we get older. Mm-hmm. And I think that is where a younger person needs to figure that out in their head and get that in there and have people keep banging that in their head because, again, as you get older, your health is your wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a great point. That's a great point because I think a lot of the guys that I end up working with, or rather, I'll say it this way, a lot of the guys that I work with and a lot of the ones that I don't, I have several calls a week with potential clients, potential people coming onto the team, and I'll say more than half of the time, a big limiter for them feeling like they can come into the program and be successful is that it's either that they think they don't have the time or that they believe that now is not the right time. It's like, oh, it's not the right time for me to commit to doing something new because, the kids are about to start school or it's about to be the holidays or, a lot of them in New Orleans or it's about to be Mardi Gras and everything's so crazy and then yada, 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 and it's true, right? Like life does get really busy. Like I am much more busy now than I was when I was 24 and I was much busier at 24 than I was at 14, right? But I think it's all relative. And at the same time, time is passing by, right? These things are happening. Like I did just turn 34. Next year I'll turn 35, and then I'll be 45. Isn't that crazy? And then I'll be 45, right? And so life is not from this moment going to get any less busy, maybe for another 35 years, right? And so it's just so important. And I get passionate about it, get fired up about it because I see these guys, they're talking about wanting to have better energy, better confidence, all the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit that physical movement and training and all that stuff can do for you. And they're deciding that now is not the right time to invest. And I keep thinking about it. It's like, man, if I put $5 a day into an index fund, in 20 years, that's going to be $1 million. But if I just decide that because I can only put $5 in today, that's not quote unquote enough money to put in, then I don't get to reap the rewards of that little investment in 20 years. And I think physical activity is the exact same thing because it's like what you start to do now has compounding of positive effects over the next 20 years of your life. If you're consistent with it, that will pay off when you're 60. When you're 65, when you're 70 years old. And those are the years that are not, I'll say guaranteed with your health. When you're in your 20s and your 30s, it's not guaranteed. People have health struggles at this time in their life for sure, but it's more guaranteed than those times, right? And you can do things now that, really sure up your investment into the future. And I just think that's such an important piece for people to see. And it's great to hear it from you because you're 65, very active, so very fit, and you're talking about making the investment over the last 20, 30, 40 years that are paying off in your ability to do what you do now. And I just think it's hard for us to see that because life gets busy and overwhelming and we want to do things perfectly. But man, it's just so important to do what you can now to at least keep the ball rolling into the future, man.
Right. That financial terminology, that the magic of compounding, people don't realize, like you said, $5 here and there at the end of 20 years, you actually have a big sum of money. And I think that fitness it compounds it even better. I have high school athlete buddies. I have college athlete buddies. I have Navy buddies who 25 years ago, we were all on the same plane. It was always fun. And I'm saying 2 out of 8, 10 can even get down on the ground. 1 out of 8 can actually do stuff that they want to do all the time without having to think about it. So I just keep going back to the sooner you start, the better the payoff's going to be. Your consistency, the better your payoff's going to be. And even now at 65, my goal is 80. I've thrown it out there. I want to be almost as fit now as I am at 80. Is it possible? I don't know, but that's my goal. Is I want to be able to get down on the ground. I want to climb a tree with my grandkid when I'm 80. I just because I love climbing trees, and so does he.
Yeah.
And he'll be 20 at that time, so it's going to be kind of fun to see that. But the sooner you start, like they always said, the best time to start lifting weights and get strong was a couple years ago. The second best time is right now.
Yeah.
So I cannot tell people enough that I don't care what you've done in your past. If you start now and you keep yourself going, you are going to pay huge dividends in the future. And
Yeah.
I think I'm a good example because I was never a muscle man fitness guy, but I went from being a little bit better than average in all sports because I'm a jack of all trades and not great at anything, to now when I see my buddies, I'm not being egotistical. None of my friends can beat me in just about anything because I had that consistency. Even though they were bigger, stronger, faster in the old days, I can give them all a head start on anything. And again, it's not because of who I am; it's because of what I've done. I put in the effort and the time, and now I get to reap the benefits.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. I love that, dude. Well, I mean, I think that carries us well into the next piece because I think we can talk all day about how awesome it is or how important it is to keep being fit, but and to just have those qualities of life, right? Obviously, you talk about, the physical benefits of maintaining your fitness, right? From a purely biological perspective, you have a healthier heart, a healthier brain, stronger bones, all of that stuff, right? But I guess I'm curious too, what do you feel like are the biggest mistakes? Because I feel like you've been through a couple different, I won't say phases in your fitness life, but I know you did physique competition, which is a primarily aesthetic based, goal outcome, and now you're talking about something which I feel like is almost at the opposite end of the spectrum in some ways of being able to climb a tree when you're 80. It's like how cool is my six pack versus how well can I climb a tree at 8 decades in, and so which is great. I love the variety, and so I'm curious, like, a lot of people that are in their 30s and 40s have been off of their fitness game for a while, right? They got, like we said, been busy with their career. They are, maybe overwhelmed at home, new and young kids, a lot of growing responsibilities, still trying to manage the chaos of life. I'm curious, what do you feel like are the biggest mistakes that guys who are in that time period, in that zone, in that, that age range make whenever it comes to their fitness? Because I feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of information on the internet, period, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there. So somebody who is 60 plus years into the game, if you look back 20, 30 years ago, what do you wish that you had done, or what are you glad that you did that's allowing you to keep, moving how you're moving now?
Probably some of the stuff that I had because I really didn't start working out until I joined the Navy.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be the best of the best, so I joined the Navy and was lucky enough to fly for the Navy. And the level of competition at that level was very high. So it made me push more. It made me get more disciplined at that time of going, okay, I'm tired, but I got to do this because I know that Gordo is and Horse is and Bubba is, so I got to keep doing it. And they knew that I was yeah, they knew that I was doing it. So we did that push back and forth. So it was probably one of the lucky things was I had that competition, friendly competition with that little, I didn't have a brother, but that brotherly love where you get to punch the guy because you know you're better than him today. And then he came back tomorrow and kicked your ass. And you're like, okay. So, and that gave me probably the start of having that discipline of going back and forth. Once I've lost that and I went into more of an airline job, which was a cushier job, I kept that discipline because I wanted to keep being the best of the best. And it wasn't that ego thing. It's just that I wanted to have the capacity. If somebody says, hey, we're going to go to so-and-so and hike, do you want to come tomorrow morning? And not have to go, oh, crap. or hey, we're going to go do this and we're going to have to carry something, and it would be no issue. So having that internal clock, that internal discipline that started when I was younger to keep myself going. And I think another point was the time management. In the Navy, we were 24 hours a day. I mean, yeah, you had time off, but especially on the carrier, you were just always doing something. And a lot of guys slept. And I decided not to sleep. I decided I'm going to go do something, as much as go do push-ups someplace, or go do squats or something, or go ahead and read something that would benefit me. So having that ability to go, okay, I have 15 minutes. It doesn't seem that much, but if I have 15 minutes a day, I can get quite a bit done. So I think a lot of people nowadays don't have that discipline of time management. They look at the big picture and they become overwhelmed, which not to be negative, but a lot of women become overwhelmed because, especially when they have babies. I mean, I've seen my daughters with the baby, and I'm overwhelmed when I watch her run around with 3 kids. I don't know how she does it, but I think a lot of times people just go, oh, it's too much, and they give up, as opposed to being able to break it down into some sort of segment. And I think guys have an easier way of breaking things down because the old guys have boxes in their head that we put stuff into. Yeah. Where women kind of, it scatters all over. And I can go ahead and grab a box and say, okay, I got 15 minutes, let's do abs. I got 15 minutes, let's do some pull-ups. And that's all I care about. I can go ahead and do that. So I think being a guy, it's a little bit easier to do the discipline stuff. But to me, it's just discipline and time management. And that's what I would tell myself younger, is just make sure you keep that discipline of time management. Because that's the most important thing, because especially nowadays, you can burn 1 hour on your phone and not realize it's been an hour. Yeah. And you're like, holy crap. So time management.
Yeah, those are great points too. And I actually made a couple of notes before the show that I wanted to touch on in this kind of zone. Some of it being, a little bit more idealistic, and some of it being a little bit more practical. But I mean, you really touched on it. And I think when you say discipline, that makes me think about something I wrote, which is really making sure that you have a goal that you're training for. And it can be something, from a practical standpoint, it can be something as simple as I can do 2 pull-ups. I want to be able to do 5, right? Okay, cool. I have something that I'm training for. As from the outside world, meaningless as that may be, you have to have something that's going to motivate you inside of an individual workout that's actually going to put you in the moment and have you putting your full effort into that workout. But then from a bigger perspective, you talked about the transition of going from being disciplined in the Navy and having people, guys that you were highly competitive with, pushing you day in and day out. But when you get into an environment that's not like that, which I think a lot of guys go through when they leave, high school and college sports and they get into their career and other stuff, like who is there pushing you for a bigger goal for, whenever you're going to train and stuff. And so I think it's super important for guys to not only have a short-term goal of some kind of physical output, some kind of thing you want to be able to do, but also being able to connect to a bigger goal of, all right, what do I want to be able to do longer term, right? Like, what is this effort actually giving to me longer term, right? And I think that goes to an even bigger point, which is kind of what we touched on at the beginning, is like, what do you want to be able to do with your life? What kind of father do you want to be? What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of energy do you want to show up in your household and in your business? Because if you can connect to that identity, and if you can connect to that end outcome, then you realize that everything you're doing, whether it be in how you invest or how you eat or how you move, is all directed towards that outcome. But a lot of guys, I think, get so caught up in the chaos of these new roles and just the rhythms of life that they lose connection to or lose awareness about what it is that they really want to do with that long-term goal, right? And so I think that something that you mentioned there, which is, being able to just show up is really important to be the best of the best, right? So being the best of the best version of Geno, being the best version of Jacob, like, what does that really look like? If you can find that, then you can see that the choices that you make around your fitness and everything else is going to take you to that place. And so having that as the big vision has been super helpful for guys that I work with to be like, all right, maybe I don't want to do this workout today. Maybe I do only have 20 minutes, but this is a step in the direction of, this version of myself that I know I really want to be long term.
100%. And when guys come to you, and I've had it before with other people, is you have your buddy, you have your buddy that you're responsible with, and you say, okay, we're going to work out, and you kind of sign a quote an agreement among each other. So we have that. I don't want to let my buddy down because I didn't work out, and I told him I was going to work out. So having that back and forth, I think, can help out a lot of younger people who seem to be alone. They're out of high school sports, they're out of college sports, and now they're just doing their job. And most people at a desk job, they're not really that active people. So I think having somebody like you or having some that group of people going, I'm accountable to that person. That person's accountable to me. And not to saying that guilt, but guilt's actually a pretty good motivator because our moms have all used it against us when we were younger. And it's kind of neat to go ahead and use it against each. Oh, you didn't work out today? You want to be soft. Okay, fine. Go be soft. And I guarantee you tomorrow morning, you're going to be out first one in the morning out there saying, come on, let's get things going. So I think having a team that you're developing is super important, especially for starting off. If they never had that before, and again, luckily I went right from college right into the Navy, so I had that team of people that we just kept being competitive.
Yep.
And I think that's important for people to have that. So if they can get tied with a group like yours and have that, I think that's to me that's probably one of the best choices they can make to get things going over setting any kind of goal is I'm going to join a team and see what happens. And
Yep.
and I think you're doing a great job by providing that team leadership.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, I'm trying, man, because it's something that I myself need. This is something I've mentioned to at least in one way or another to the guys that I coach, but it's like, they might come to me for fitness and nutrition and, wanting to have better energy and all this stuff, but like, and those are categories where I feel very competent and very, very confident in my ability to give information and help and coach. But there's many areas that I am not nearly as successful as the people that I'm coaching are, right? Like some of the people that I'm coaching are very, very financially successful, or they already have the family that I one day hope to have, beautiful kids and a beautiful wife. I mean, I have a beautiful wife and, we hope to have children one day, but I look at them in a lot of ways and it's like they're succeeding in areas of their life that I admire, right? And I just happen to be an expert in the fitness and nutrition part, right? So everybody I think needs, this is going to be something that we talk about in a future episode, but like community and accountability, man, those two things, like I think guys get so obsessed with the idea that they need to have the perfect plan. They need to have the perfect exercises laid out. You know what I mean? Like they have the perfect exercises laid out. They have the exact sets and reps and how they're going to do it. And they have it laid out Monday through Friday and yada, yada. And then they do it one time and then their kid gets sick and then they fall off. And before you know it, it's 5 weeks later and they're right back where they started that Monday looking at the perfect plan and they haven't done it. And so I think having accountability is so huge, having a team of people, whether or not it's a team that, whether it's Shift, my team, or whether or not it's a team of people that just happen to be in your apartment complex or in your neighborhood, like having somebody that can keep you accountable is one of the major, like cornerstones of long-term success, because I do think that intrinsic accountability, staying accountable to yourself is very, very important. But I mean, unless you're the one of one psychopath that can always wake up at 4 a.m, like having accountability to somebody else and having that that exchange of accountability, the buddy who talks shit to you and you talk shit to him and say, hey, time to get up, bitch. It's like, we got to go work out. Like, and they say it to you on your bad days. Like that is so crucial. So I think that's a great point too, because guys who want to be successful getting back into a fitness routine and something they haven't done in a while, man, fellas, like you don't have to do it by yourself. I think that's a downfall of being maybe a man, but it's just like we want to do it all by ourselves. We want to pretend like we have the answers to everything. We want to not ask for help. A guy asking for directions is never hardly ever going to happen, right? So like we want to do it all by ourselves. So having accountability is so freaking huge, man. So I think that's a great point that you made.
Yep.
Yeah. And then real quick too, before we leave it, man, the time management piece, this is, I think that's another way of saying is that a lot of guys, when they're getting back into fitness, they don't have a real plan. They really don't have a plan. I see so many dudes at the gym who I've had conversations with these same guys. Like I see them at the gym and then 6 months later, they come up to me and ask me about an exercise I'm doing. turns out that they've been coming to the gym consistently, but they're not seeing any progress. And I think that comes from not having, a real plan laid out. And so one thing, guys, just as a practical tip that you can do is, yes, get a plan. You can type into ChatGPT, 3-day workout split, whatever, right? But really, to make it consistent so that you can build on these long-term investments, is take a look at your schedule for the week, because things are chaotic. And like you talked about, time management is so huge. Look at your calendar. And if you have a fairly regular schedule, like most people, okay, you're not, flying all over the place or whatever, then you're going to be able to say, okay, on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, I know that I have this hour slot that most of the time I'm going to be free to work out. Put your workout in that slot. That way it's on your schedule, the same way a meeting is, the same way your kid's dentist appointment is, whatever. And you're going to be 10 times more likely to make it to that workout because it's in your calendar, it's scheduled, and you know that you don't have to use that hour to be worrying about anything else. And I think a lot of people go, I'm going to work out this week. I'm going to work out 3 times. All right. When are you going to do it? I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And so they start to push things back. And I mean, I just had a conversation with a client yesterday who, we did this exact same strategy, and he got his first workout in 6 weeks in this morning because he put it on his freaking schedule. I texted his ass at 6:30 in the morning. I said, hey, it's time to go. He did his workout, so that accountability piece and really putting it on your schedule is going to make the long-term consistency so much easier. So I think those are 2 major things that guys trying to get back into the routine of doing stuff is building it into a routine, looking at your schedule to do it, and finding somebody, whether it's a coach or your buddy or whoever, that can keep you accountable to hitting it when you say you're going to. I think those two things are huge, man.
Yeah, 100%. And going back to accountability is, I think in today's world, not enough guys stop and go to a room and actually talk to themselves. We think that we know each other, but if you actually sat down, because you can't lie to yourself. And I like to actually go someplace every once in a while, and I'll actually talk out loud to myself and ask myself questions. I know the answer in the back of my head, but I want to hear what comes out of my voice. And if it's an excuse, then I know that it's a bunch of shit. And if I can't be honest with myself, I can't be honest with anybody. So I really think it's important to be accountable to yourself, going, hey, Geno, let's do this. We're going to do this, right? Okay, I have a busy day this whole week's busy, but I know I can find a half hour a day in every day. When I was younger, I was a single dad with 2 daughters. I had my airline job as an instructor. I had my reserve job in the Navy. So I'm a single dad with 2 girls. I'm flying off to fly every once in a while, but luckily I taught quite a bit. I'd have to take 4 days and go down to Meridian, Mississippi and fly where my ex-wife would watch the kids. I was averaging about 4.5 hours sleep a day. But I was young and I could handle that, and I had my body programmed to handle that. So you can find the time if you're actually honest with yourself. So I'm a big believer in accountability to you and others. But man, if you're not accountable to yourself and you can actually sit down and talk to yourself alone, honestly, because I've sat down a couple times and I refused to answer myself verbally because I knew the answer and I didn't want to hear myself actually say it. And then I look in the mirror and I see that guy on the other side rolling his eyes like, come on, dude, let's make things happen. And that person, I was accountable, and then I could be accountable to you or somebody else on my team, and I'm accountable to my family, and it just widened out my perimeter. But if my inner circle, myself, if I can't be accountable to this person when I say I'm going to do this, then I'm just bullshitting everybody else out there. So I think it starts a lot with yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. That's a great point because I mean, at the end of the day, when you're brushing your teeth, you're not looking at all your friends. You're just looking at yourself in the mirror. Like
yeah, dude, and that dude pisses me off sometimes.
I bet he does, man. I bet he does. Well, I don't know if I have my exact question, but it's just making me think. So, is that that personal accountability piece? Because there's going to be some people, and I mean, even me sitting here, right? Like I do like to think I hold myself accountable. It might not be moment of, but I'm definitely a self-reflecting kind of person, and I'll come back and like, all right, I can do better than I did yesterday, or I can do better than I did 6 months ago, or whatever the instance was, or like I can do better than that, and you try to improve. for someone who listens to you say that and they're like, oh man, this dude was in the Navy, he was a fighter pilot, like he's just different than I am. Like that's just not how I operate. How would you start to build the muscle of holding of more personal accountability, or how would you start if you had to start from scratch, like what would that look like? Does it just look like taking 5 minutes at the end of the day and journaling and being like, all right, here's a real honest score about how I did today, and here's one way I can improve tomorrow? Or like, where would that start for you if you had to help somebody build that from the ground up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that now, before I go to bed every night, I take about 3 minutes and I actually look what I did on the day. I look at why did I blow up on the highway when that car pulled in front of me? How stupid was that? There were 5 cars ahead of me. Why did you do that? What was going on that made you do? Oh, because I was late, because I wasn't leaving early enough to get the job done. So I'm actually mad at somebody else when I should be mad at myself. So I think being able to be honestly reflect to yourself and talk to yourself like he's your best friend, because he is. Nobody loves you more than you, and nobody could probably give you more shit than you could to yourself. I know nobody's ever knocked me down as hard as I've knocked myself down in the past. And I'm not saying I love myself a lot, but I put myself in front of a lot of stuff because I love myself. And that allows me to help other people and love other people. And so I would think somehow to have some time during the day to actually you can be honest with yourself and try to build that relationship. And everybody knows in order to have a good relationship, you have to spend time. You can't have a good relationship with your wife if you never spend time with her. You can't have a good relationship with all my past buddies that we have great relationships now is because we had so much time together when we were younger. So, and that's why I like to talk out loud to myself, because when you just think it, you don't really experience the time in the relationship back and forth. So I would actually tell people to verbalize it. I like to read my morning messages out loud because it lets me say it, hear it, feel it. So I like to talk to myself so I can do that same thing. And
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, no, it certainly does. And I think when you say it like that, it makes it a little more obvious than the the kind of classic. Because I mean, there's kind of a blend here, right? Like in the past, like I don't know, 15, 20 years, mental health has become a little bit more mainstream, and then men's mental health has started to become a little bit more mainstream as well. And it can get a little woo-woo, it can get a little big, or a
Big
little,
time.
esoteric kind of quickly, right? It can kind of leave practical life pretty quickly. But when you break it down like that, it's like, okay, if you want to have a good relationship with your wife, then yeah, you want to spend time with her. But then also too, it's like, all right, when you are spending time with her, what are you doing? Are you constantly critiquing her? Is she constantly critiquing you? Are you guys just bitching about the finances and, bitching about the cleanliness of the house or what the kids are doing or whatever? And so I think taking that and then replacing wife with self is actually a really helpful lens, because it's like, all right, when you're spending time with yourself, what does that look like? Are you doing things that you really enjoy? Like, do you know and understand what really makes you happy to be spending your time doing? Are you doing stuff that's actually fulfilling, meaningful, joy making for you? And then at the same time, all right, the conversation that you have with your wife, the dialogue that you have with your wife, what does that sound like? Is it critical? Is it harsh? Okay, now replace wife with self again. When you're talking to yourself, what does that self-talk look like? And I know we started this on fitness, but I think it's just important too, because, the types of conversations that you have with yourself, the types of time you spend with yourself, and the types of, honestly, kind of the way you make yourself feel, the way you talk to yourself and how that makes you feel, I think is super important for health, and has a lot to do with fitness actually, because that's, that time with yourself is dedicated time to improving your body and making you more healthy so that you can do more things that you enjoy. It's a direct investment of time with self. When you do a very physically difficult, challenging thing, you have really no choice but to be fully present with yourself in what you're doing. And if you enjoy growing, if you enjoy getting better, if you enjoy improving, then that's good, what you would call good quality time with yourself, right? And so I think Yeah, I really like that idea, and it makes it really simple for me to understand. Is just like, okay, if I want to improve the type of accountability that I have to myself, what kind of relationship do I have with myself at the very beginning? Because it's difficult. Like we've all had coaches, right? And a great coach is not someone who is constantly on your ass. Great coach, I think, is someone who is on your ass when they needs to be, and then is lifting you up and telling you how great you did when you need to be. But they're not always telling you how great you are, and they're not always telling you how shitty you are, right? There's a balance there. And I think that self accountability comes from, being able to hold yourself accountable is holding yourself to that standard, and being your own coach and being your own, person who's going to get you there is a balance of being real honest when you need to be. But honesty can be, hey, you honestly did a great job, or you honestly did shit. And so,
Yeah.
you have to have both. But taking the time in general to have that assessment and to have that evaluation, I think is really important. And I like how you kind of break it down. You have your morning time, and then you also have your evening reflection time, which I think is really important.
I agree. And then every once in a while, I know that guys are so busy that they don't live in the present. And I think every once in a while, you need to stop and just go, look what I've done so far today. This is what I have to do. And I know that my wife, she's very fit, very active, very outgoing. But one of her probably negative things for her is she's always saying what she doesn't get done. And I go, but look what you did. And so hasn't learned how to be softer for herself, because she's actually quite good at everything that she does. But she puts so much on her plate, and I think a lot of people do the same thing. That you look at your plate, going, "Man, my plate's still full, and I'm going to bed." How about you look back on what did you take off the plate, and look at your accomplishments of what you've done, and give yourself some of that self love, and take a little bit easier on yourself. And the cool thing is, yourself will start listening more to you if you do it that way. Just like you said, conversation. If you're talking down to your wife, or you're talking to your wife in, quote, that tone that she always talks about, she's not really going to listen to you and respond well. But if you can actually talk well to her every once in a while, even if it might be somewhat, it's positive criticality, that she'll listen to you more. So if all I'm doing is yelling at myself, eventually I'm going to turn myself off. And even though we're going to be there, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. But every once in a while, like you said, that coach looks over. And my dad was good at this, because my dad was from the old school. He never really said emotionally wise, but he would give me that look after I did something, playing sports wise, or made a basket, or made a steal, or hit a good shot, or did some yard work. He'd come over and give me that look. And that look was, man, all of a sudden I was 6'5" when I was 8 years old, because I was like, that's what I live for. I would do anything for that one. So I understood that having that little positive, negative is going to be in your life all the time, but man, we need some positive, especially as men, because masculinity is bad, and being over dominating and being muscular is bad, because it's like, no, 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 all that stuff is good. And you have to go ahead and remind yourself that. So, and just be positive, a little more positive to yourself. Like you said, be positive to your wife, to yourself, to your friends, and man, you're going to have much better relationships and much better outcomes in goal setting. So,
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, I want to ask you a question. So, well, it's kind of two questions, but it comes together. So, one being is, did you always have that, or is that something that like you made? Did you ever? You don't have to say a specific moment, but did you ever have a, like, you know what? I'm actually kind of being a dick to myself on a pretty regular basis. Maybe I should try to be a little bit nicer. Or did it just happen over time organically? And then the second thing is, and this kind of leads into the first one, but I think a lot of guys, especially driven guys, and I don't want to say most guys are driven, but I mean, I don't know. I think everyone's kind of got that dog in them sometimes, and they just have to find it. And so that's one point. But a lot of guys use that self-deprecating, that, I'm not doing a good enough job, or that, like, I could be doing better, in a negative tone, to push themselves to do better. And they've actually achieved a lot because of that. Like, I think about Michael Jordan, and, he wasn't inspired, at least initially, by how great he could be. He was inspired to dominate everyone who told him that he couldn't be great, right? So he wasn't
right.
like positively inspired. He was like negatively inspired. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how
Yep.
exactly to phrase that, but like, I mean, in his Hall of Fame speech, he thanked everyone who had told him that he wasn't going to be the Michael Jordan that he is. And he used that as this internal fuel. And I think a lot of guys use this kind of internal, I don't know if it's competition. I don't know if it's self-loathing. I don't know if it's like, you need to be better. You got to be better, whatever you want to call that. They use that as fuel. And I do think that that inspires a lot of people to a lot of results, a lot of greatness at the end of the day, but it's maybe not necessarily going to lead to the happiest version, the happiest life that they could have. So I guess I'm curious is like, did you get there over time, or was there like a moment for you? And then how do you transition the energy from a more negatively inspired push to be great to like a more, all right, how do I create positive impact type of inspiration? Because I think it's difficult to balance, especially if you have a lot of reps in one direction.
Well, I want to answer the second first and the first second. You were talking about Michael Jordan and using negativity to make himself better. Knowing most of the men that I've known in my life, that they can't do that. They can't take a negative and make it a positive and make them work harder for it. They take the negative and they eat it like a sponge, and I've actually watched them just stand still, and they don't progress through the decades. It takes a special person to have that, whatever that mindset is, going, you tell me I can't do something? Well, bullshit, I'm going to go do it. And that's what Michael Jordan did. And that's what some of the other great people do. But I bet there's 10 people for every one that go, oh, you're right. Especially the younger you are, the more you hear that you're no good, it becomes in there. And you look at the people that they become no good because that's what they are. You hit a dog every day, and the dog's never going to jump around and it's just going to go hide. So I am a huge person in being positive to everybody that I met as much as I can, because I know negativity sticks much worse to somebody than positive does. And so I'd rather not say anything than say something negative, because I don't think most people can take a negative and get better with it. They will take a negative and get worse. So that was the second part that I would run with. The first part, I was the youngest and only boy in my family. My mom and dad worked. My sisters were all older than me. Our neighborhood wasn't very boyish. They had a couple people live in our neighborhood. So I spent a shit ton of time by myself, up in the strip mines, down at the river, climbing trees. And I developed a way of talking to myself, climbing the tree, going, okay, you climbed the tree pretty fast, but if you would have gone that branch, you would have gone faster. So the next day I do that. And then I can sit on top of the tree, look out, it's funny how trees become kind of like my lift up, because it's kind of like in life. You climb a tree and you get to look at the very top from views that very few people get to see. And then you climb back down again because you got to come back down to earth. So I got my goal, but then I have to come down to earth and go ahead and find another goal to climb another tree. So it's funny how through my life, tree climbing is so much a part of what I see as my character. Is I got a tough tree to climb, but I can get to the top, and then I get that great view. But I realize I can only stay here for a second. I got to come back down again and do something else. Mm-hmm. So I developed that ability to talk to myself early on because I guess I had to. I didn't have a whole lot of family ties. It was always funny. My daughters always said, "What was your relationship with your sisters or my aunts?" And I'm like, we didn't have any because they were older than me. The only time we had anything was on a vacation, and they'd usually throw something at me, because I was the spoiled one and I was the chosen child, and so they had a little bit of animosity toward me as well. But I think that I developed that at a younger age of being able to be honest and talk to myself back and forth, and it helped me. So I don't know how somebody can start now, but I just think the most important thing now is to be honest. It would be good to do it earlier, but start today. Yeah. Take a minute, 30 seconds, and just say something honest to yourself and look in the mirror. And do you believe that person who's telling you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Because that's what I was going to ask you. Because, what I coach to guys that, and I hear this all the time, man. Like I have this one client in particular I'm thinking about. We'll be on a call and he'll say in one way or another that he's a piece of crap, or it's like, oh dude, I'm such a piece of shit for forgetting about that, or dude, I know I'm being a lazy piece of shit for not hitting my workout, or whatever it is, right? And I bring his attention to it, and I really did last time. I was like, yo, stop right now. Did you hear yourself? Like, you just called yourself in some way or another a piece of shit like 5 times in the last 2 minutes in relationship to something that you didn't do, right? And so I think for guys, like, there's no magic bullet on how to fix this self-talk, right? And I don't think it's ever gonna perfectly fix. Like, I don't know if that's possible. Maybe that's what enlightenment is or whatever, right? But like, I think if you can just become aware, 2 things, aware and then intentional, right? You become aware, like, oh man, the type of thoughts that I'm having, the type of internal dialogue I'm having, the type of ways that I speak to myself, man, they all kind of sound pretty negative. Like, if I were saying that out loud to another person or a buddy of mine, we probably wouldn't be friends for very long, because that's not a great way to talk to somebody. So just being aware about it, and then, like you're saying, in the moment, or being intentional about setting out 30 seconds to a minute, even if it just starts with 30 seconds to a minute of your day, where you try to be honest with yourself and frame it in a positive way, because regardless of how bad of a thing you've done that day, you've also probably done something good or done something well. Like, maybe you didn't hit your workout, but maybe, you did a great job, with getting your kids' lunches ready for the day, because they now have beautiful, healthy lunch that they can go off and enjoy. Maybe you missed your workout, but you did do that. So focusing on the positives, being honest with yourself, and then trying to reframe it moving into the rest of your week, I think or rest of your day, whatever, I think is really powerful, because it's never going to be 100%. You're never going to talk to yourself, like an enlightened person, but it's just human nature. So trying to reframe it, being aware and being intentional, I think is a great place to start.
Exactly. It's better to say nothing than say something negative to yourself. I guarantee that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Awesome, man. Well, we haven't talked about fitness in the last 30 minutes. But no, I think it's important, man. I think it's important because, I keep saying a lot of guys, because people, this is gonna be the first episode of the show probably, but people may or may not know, like, I run a fitness coaching program, lifestyle coaching program for guys in their 30s and 40s, right? So I say a lot of guys. That's who I'm trying to talk to. It's who this episode and this show is really for, is for those people to be able to get the most out of their life and give them the tools to do so. And so I think a lot of guys have this really self-deprecating, self-loathing type talk, because they are 15 to 20 pounds overweight, because they haven't worked out consistently in 6 months to 2 years, because they do find themselves eating and drinking more than they should, or, whatever behavior or habit that they're doing that they kind of intrinsically, if they were honest and talked out loud to themselves, like you're saying, would know that they don't want to do. That self-talk is that cycle that just repeats and repeats and repeats, right? And so being able to take a second and flip that cycle on its head and start with something that's positive, I think is so powerful, regardless of where you apply it. If it's your nutrition, if it's your mindset, if it's your fitness, if it's your relationships, whatever it is, having that moment of awareness and flipping it to a positive does so much more for you than continuing the negative, because continuing the negative is probably going to get you exactly where you are now. So you have to do something a little bit different if you want to make some changes. And I think that would be a really, really solid place for guys to start, because then they can be positive about just going to the gym for 10 fucking minutes. You don't need to do the perfect hour-long workout. If you start with 10 minutes, and then before you know it, you're doing 10 minutes 3 times a week, that's 30 minutes. And then before you know it, 6 months later, 3 times 30 minutes, now you're actually working out. And then before you know it, by the end of the year, you're doing 3 times an hour, and now you're in a sustainable routine for the rest of your life. And I think that it really starts with that 30 seconds of positive talk to yourself, that 1 10-minute workout, that 50 jumping jacks before you get in your car, whatever it is, right? I think it starts with trying to choose and be intentional about doing something positive for yourself, even if it's not quote unquote perfect. And that is the kickstart to everything that you want, is on the other side of that one decision and building momentum after that point.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Yeah, man. Awesome, man. Well, let's see what else we got on the fitness aspect. Okay, I want to talk real quick. So, give me your thoughts on this. I think biggest mistakes that guys make when they are training is that they this is going to go back purely to like a fitness training aspect. We talked a good bit about the mindset. Is 2 things. I think guys in their 30s, we're still stuck a lot of times in what we were doing when in our 20s, which is really just lifting, training like a bodybuilder slash power lifter, right? You're doing all your big barbell, dumbbell compound movements, but you're not really moving your body outside of that types of range of motion or that type of intensity, right? And so I think a big mistake that a lot of guys making is that they're still lifting with the same plan and the same ideas that they've had since they were 18 years old. You still got me? It looks like we got
Yeah.
it's
It says, yeah.
I don't know why.
I can
Okay,
still
we're
hear
still
you.
recording. Okay,
Yep.
cool. So I'm curious, what do you do differently now in your training than you did when you were in your 20s and 30s? Because I know for me, a lot of things have changed as far as the tools that I'm using, the amount of mobility and breathing I'm focusing on, the variety of movements. So I'm curious, what has changed for you? You remember how I said at the beginning, hey, Gino, I need to make sure you got some Wi-Fi, good headset, yada, yada. Well, my Wi-Fi dropped like right in the middle and I got kicked out.
Okay. What are we talking on right now?
Well, now I'm on my cell service. Now I'm just on straight AT&T or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there we
can
go.
see you now.
You got me?
Yep.
Sweet. All right, so yeah, what we were talking on before. Sorry, everybody who was so deeply intent on our conversation that dropped out. I know people were hanging on by the seat of their pants, wanting to know what you've changed. But what would you do differently or introduce when you're in your 30s that maybe you didn't do, and what are you doing now that's different that's keeping you moving well? Because it's not just weightlifting. It might be a part of it, but what are you doing different now, and what would you suggest?
Well, I think I was like most people younger that you didn't realize that you were taking advantage of your youth. So you didn't care about doing diversity of different things. I wanted to have a little bit bigger bicep. I wanted to have a little bit of chest. I wanted to have a little bit of abs. And I think that's what a lot of people at their younger age want, because that it looks good when you go to the beach. It looks good when you go on vacation. But it doesn't really do a whole lot for your functionality as you get older. And luckily, because I loved climbing trees and I loved hiking trails, and I kind of did the dashing up and down a hillside, or I would climb a tree. So I got to do some pull ups, or I got to do some chin ups. And that kept me overall fit throughout my body. And then because I had a couple buddies who could bench 350, but they couldn't do a pull up or they couldn't do a squat very well, but they did. So I think luckily that I was more well rounded accidentally as a kid than I am now, than I was, than I think some other people were. But as I got older, I realized that, hey, you're never going to get big. And I laugh when people go, I don't want to go to the gym, especially women. I don't want to get big. I mean, I've been lifting for 40 years and I can't get, it just doesn't happen. You get stronger, but you
Yeah.
don't get, quote, big. So I think I accidentally fell into that early on, that I want to do pull ups. I want to do chin ups. I want to be able to do squats. I like to do movements like that one guy who does a lot of animal movements where he's crawling around on the ground like a bear, or I roll over on my back and do like a crab walk. And it looks funny to do that, but you realize that you lose what you don't use. And I've learned that as well, that if you don't use it, you lose it. So I try to do something different, goofy.
Yeah.
Maybe the goofy stuff I'll do on my own property. I won't do it at the gym because I don't want to look like an idiot. Though
Yeah.
as I get older, that's even less inclined. I don't care anymore when I get older. But there is still an ego in there involved with it. So I
Of
would think
course.
that the biggest part to tell younger is, or your age or getting older, is try to do some different movements. Look at some of the guys at the gym, and I've had quite a few people your age, 40, 50, come up to me and say, they ask, first of all, they ask, how old are you? And like, well, how do you do what you do now? That because you're older than my dad, and my dad can't do that. And I always told him that I like to work out like kids play. If you ever watch a young kid play, and I remember watching you on your front yard in Mississippi when you were 3 or 4, running around, jumping, skipping, falling, spinning, carrying something, throwing something awkwardly. And I realized that that is what keeps us young. Movement keeps us young. So I like to go ahead and do some different type of pull-ups. There's some different type of chin-ups, move one hand over, whatever else. I'll try to walk like a duck every once in a while just to see if I can. And I realized that doing that diversity of movement is what's really keeping me able to do the diversity of movement. And I think that's what's really got into my head more as I get older. What I try to tell the younger people when they tell me is, think about lifting like kids play, is keep that variety so it's fresh in your head. You don't get one place where you can do 1,000 chin-ups, but I can't do one barbell. So keep that diversity, because that's going to put you in a better life. Carrying groceries, carrying the child, carrying the suitcase through the airport, running backwards or walking backwards. It's all what makes you be able to live, and that's what makes life happy, is that you get to do stuff that you've always done. And I keep going back to, you don't realize what you have until you lose it. And once you lose it, man, it's a bitch to try to get back.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think, yeah, 100% on that. 100% on that. I've been working on my hip mobility. I remember being a kid and I was in karate and I could like literally stand probably like 6, 8 inches from the wall and like kick, whatever, a foot from the wall, kick up the wall without touching the wall and come back down. And now, like I can barely get my leg above my hip 5 feet away from the wall. Like it's crazy. But that kind of stuff, it's like, all right, man, it makes me really think. Like, it can get better. You got to put probably a little more time into it now because our lifestyles are different and tissue's not as flexible as it once was, and yada yada. You can get it back, but you got to work at it. But if you never lose it, that's so much easier. You know what I mean? That's so much easier.
Yeah.
And I think the diversity of movement is such an important point, because a lot of guys, they're going to the gym. They're lifting, they're doing the classic moves, they're doing their chest day, they're doing their back day, they're doing their arms, shoulders, legs, whatever it is. And that's great. But the movement patterns that they're using to develop those muscle groups or develop those movements are so tightly fixed inside of a certain box that once they have to go outside of that box, for example, lunges. When was the last time you lunged to the side? When was the last time you lunged to 45 degrees? When was the last time you lunged to 45 degrees holding something above your head? Like you can still train your legs. You can still build and develop these muscles so that you have the look that you want, but you don't have to be stuck into it's got to be bench press. It's got to be single dumbbell press. It's got to be pec fly. Because dude, some of the most developed upper bodies in the world are these gymnasts. How many times do you think they're doing bench press? They're not. They're doing rings. They're doing handstands. They're doing planche push-ups. They're doing all this stuff. And so it's like you got to open your mind to the fact that you can have the body that you want. You can look how you want to look. If only 20% of your program is the traditional lifts, and then the other 80% can be all this stuff where you're still using and moving weight, but you're doing it with rotation. You're doing it with bending of your spine. You're doing it crawling. You're doing all this stuff. So I think a big mistake guys make is they're like, man, I feel so stiff and shitty, but I'm going to the gym. It's like, yeah, dude, because all you're doing when you're at the gym is bracing and moving stiff. Like you're getting really, really good at being stiff so that the barbell doesn't fall down. Like, of course you're not going to feel as good when you go to play a sport or pick up your kid, So it's like you got to start to move in different ways if you want to feel different. And as long as you're moving weight and doing it with intensity, your muscles and your physique will change. But if your movement patterns don't change, then your body won't move any differently by the end of it. And then you'll be, you just get stuck after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing is, why are you lifting? If you're lifting just for looks, ego, well, I don't think that's the reason why. Obviously we've all had that time when we want to look good at the gym and ego, but bench press does what for you lifting a kid and putting groceries away on your shelf, and what does that stuff really do for functionality? And I've gotten better at functional strength as opposed to gym strength. And to me, the crazy examples are these farmers. The guys that my dad's dad, he always told me that he was like my size, about 170, but he could outlift all of his sons because he had that crazy farmer strength, because he knew how to use his leverage and make everything happen, where all his younger brothers and stuff tried to muscle everything up and didn't understand technique, and then they got hurt. And once you get hurt, you're screwed,
Yeah.
especially as you get older. Man, once you get hurt, that is the worst program killer there is out there. I mean, that's worse than having kids. I've had kids talk about time, sucking your time away. You get hurt and you lose your mental capability of doing anything. You become a little whiny bitch. It doesn't feel good even just moving, and so and it's really tough. You got to be careful because you get in that spiral, that depression spiral, and you get stuck in that cyclone.
Yeah.
It's difficult as hell to get out of that thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think that's super important, man, because it's like, obviously what you do in the gym is cool, and what how you feel, and being strong and moving some weight around feels great. But it's like, if you got that niggle in your shoulder that makes you have to switch hands before you grab something out of the high shelf, it's like, what's the fucking point? Like,
Right.
you're really telling me that, it's more important for you to bench press a certain weight than it is for you to confidently grab a football and throw it down the beach with your kid? Like, is that really the thing? Like, is bench pressing or having your chest to be developed like that much more important to you? Like, what if your chest was 10% smaller, but you could throw the ball with zero worry about your shoulder? What's the trade-off here? You know what I mean? And it's just, you can have both, you can have both. Like, me personally,
Yep.
I'm not the strongest I've ever been from a pure weight numbers perspective, but I feel the strongest that I've ever been because I have zero hesitation in my mind about being able to do whatever it is that I want to do. I might not be the best volleyball player, but I can go play without worrying about my shoulder or my back. I might not be the
Right.
best X, Y, or Z thing, but there's no hesitation in my brain or my body for going to do that stuff. And what you do in the gym really gives you access to that way. And I just think it's so important for guys to hear that, because it's like, oh yeah, I go and I lift and it affects my physique and it affects my health. That's one thing. But then there's a whole other category about what does it make you physically capable of doing, and where's the hesitation and where's the confidence, that I think is so important.
Yeah, and that confidence is so important,
Yeah, that's actually
especially
one thing.
for men.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you too, because something about training that I think is awesome for guys. And I hear this sometimes, like in these, one-on-one conversations that I have with my clients, is like they say, it's like, I haven't trained in a while. Like, I don't feel very strong. I don't feel very confident. Maybe they're 10, 15 pounds overweight. Their clothes don't fit how they want to. But then another thing is they're like, I want to make sure that if something were to go down, a lot of my friends, a lot of my clients live in New Orleans. If something were to go down and they're walking in the downtown New Orleans and something were to pop off, like, can they protect the people that are with them, feeling like they're physically capable to protect and be a strong presence for the people that are with them? What are your thoughts on that? And how is that something that you consider and you think about? Because it wasn't until I started having these conversations that I realized, I was like, oh man, you know what? Or now that I have a wife, I'm like, all right, like, I want to make sure that in my environment, I feel like I'm at least capable. I might not be the most skilled fighter, but I'm gonna play good defense, I'll say. So it's like, I think that's an important thing that comes from these inputs too.
Well, just the sheer awareness of that to me is important. I know a lot of people are good. They walk through their life. They don't even think about what's around them, situation awareness. And that was something that was brought into my life years ago in the Navy was SA. We called it SA, short for situation awareness, is what's going on around you. And first of all, am I aware of those two people over there? Am I aware that my wife is now on the road side of the sidewalk where I should be, and she should be on the building side of the sidewalk? Can I really defend her as we come around the corner? Am I actually looking to see what's going on? And like you said, you don't have to be the most skilled fighter. And if you talk to a lot of the experts, and I've talked to quite a few people in this field of evil and threats, is if you can actually see the threat and the threat sees you seeing them, they're going to find an easier target. They're not going to waste their time on you. And that's about 90 to 95% of all your attacks. Listening to these experts will go away if you actually have your head up because you're aware of what's going on. You're communicating with whoever you're with, and you're looking. If you see somebody, if you can actually look at them and they see you, they're going to let you go, and they're going to go to somebody else. So I always tell my wife and my daughters when they're walking, don't walk with your head in your phone. Don't walk looking down. Make sure you're always looking around to have that awareness. And then if somebody does come, it comes after me or you, or I might not be the biggest guy, but I know soft points. I'm going for the eyes. I'm going for the throat. I'm going for the nuts. I'm going for the ankle.
Yeah.
Because size, no matter how big a person is, everybody's eyes are the same strength. Everybody has the same strength in the throat. Everybody's nuts hurts. Everybody's ankles are pretty weak. So you always got to go for that stuff. So that would be my thing. But like you said, you have to be aware of what's going on and have that confidence as you're walking to seeing what's going on. So situational awareness would help a lot of people avoid any kind of confrontation, to have to worry about that one. But having the strength to stand up to somebody, or at least be able to go, hey, let's walk faster. Can we walk any faster? But you can't because your hamstring's pulled, or you're a fat son of a bitch and you can't, So it's all incorporated in that manhood stuff of being aware, being fit, taking care of your family, taking care of yourself, having good surroundings, and it's all part of that. That all goes underneath of that masculinity, which I think is good. I don't think it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the confidence piece is really strong too. And I think it's delivered in a very nice way by earning it. It's like what is, I guess be curious to know your thoughts on what that real confidence is. But for me, it's like, if you look back 6 months ago and you were only capable of running a mile and now you can run 5 miles, or you're only capable of doing one pull up, now you can do 10, and you're only capable of, doing whatever output you want to qualify or use as a metric, like there's a certain type of confidence that knows that you have worked your ass off to be able to get where you were to where you are now. And that shows up in every aspect of your life. And one thing I think is really important about fitness is that you can't fake it. Like it's something that really shows you, and this is something I am I'm a zealot for, but fitness I think really shows you that your efforts delivered across time can actually equal progress. And I think it's one of the few things in the world where that's the case. Like you're a father, you have older children now. I'm not a father, but it takes years, maybe 2 decades to realize that you were a good father. It might take a decade sometimes for your business to actually reach a place where you're like, oh man, I have a sustainable, good business now. It might take 5 years before you realize that you've been a good husband or whatever because your household is together. Like there's these things that take a lot of delayed gratification. And I think fitness is awesome because it is an opportunity to show guys that their effort, when consistently done, does lead to progress. And the window is not as big as fatherhood or business development or marriage, right? You can see fitness gains in a month. If you put in effort, you can see major fitness gains in a month where it's like, oh shit, the work I put in on the first, now it's the first of next month, like I'm doing more. And you can see that actual progress is possible. And I think that leads to a tremendous amount of confidence because it has the ability to transfer into every other thing that you do. And that's why, going back to the initial part of our conversation at the beginning, which is like, is it important to make too big of a deal out of this fitness thing? And I think it is if you're just talking about biceps and abs, but I think it's not if you see it as a vehicle for self-development, if you see it as a vehicle for developing confidence, if you see it as a vehicle for creating a more, sustainable masculinity or a more, confident masculinity. Like I think it is so fucking powerful. And that ability to see progress over time is huge, man.
And confidence feeds off of confidence. I mean, you look at sports athletes teams, whenever they get confidence, they get rolling, and all of a sudden the momentum changes and they win big. Or if you lose that confidence, you lose big. So I'm a big believer in that. Confidence is keep it going, talking to yourself nice, giving yourself that positive attitude that you can keep going on with getting the confidence. Because I mean, at my age, I actually get looked at a little bit when I walk into some place and somebody will walk over and go, I just want to say, dude, you stand out. I mean, not because I'm old, but I got a little bit of curve, I got a little bit of muscle, I got a little bit of vein. And as you get older, you realize that somebody's looking at me going, that guy has something that a lot of people don't have. And he's got that confidence and that motivation. And I'm not out looking for women, but I know that women look at men differently when they're fit than they are when they're not fit. And that's not a reason to get fit. That's just one of those things that it's true that people can look at somebody who's fit and go, I don't know a whole lot about that guy. I don't know what he does, everything, but obviously he's dedicated into what he's doing and taking care of himself. So he's a pretty good provider. He's probably a pretty good guy and all around just a confident person. Whereas I'm not saying the egotistical bodybuilder dude with the big old muscles, and because that's a whole separate thing. But somebody who's just normally fit, I think that people notice that, and they notice it a lot more as you get older. Because again, when I walk into a room and I have all my buddies, it's a huge difference from what they are. And I just went up to Chicago 2 weeks ago. We were out in the boat, and I was the only one that took off my shirt and jumped in the water. All my other buddies, they kept their shirts on, and they just like, God, man, in the old days, we would all be jumping in, like we'd probably be buck naked right now, and you guys are all just,
That's the Navy, huh?
Yeah, it's just that you could just see the lack of confidence, and you can actually see it in the back of their head going, man, I wish I was more fit. And there's nothing like regret. I mean, that's biggest ball puncher there is out there is going, man, I coulda and I didn't. And I don't want to ever say that to myself. So I just keep consistent, keep working through, movement's medicine, and what is the prescription is consistency. It just works. So keep doing it. It's not like crazy science. It just fucking works.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's not complicated if you don't make it complicated. It really isn't.
It's not.
I mean, it really isn't.
Dude,
one of the last things I wanted to touch on, and then I'm going to let you go about the rest of your day, is another kind of token inside the Trojan horse that I think is fitness, right? We've talked about what it does for your confidence, what it can do for, your self-esteem, your physical abilities, your presence and awareness, your self-talk, all of that stuff. Like, I think that is all really important, and is all contained within the, again, the Trojan horse that is some bench press and push-ups and running a little bit, right? I think it's all inside of there. But another thing that I think is really important is this concept of physical discomfort and intentional suffering. I think that's a really powerful thing that good, hard exercise, good, hard fitness, good, hard training can teach us and give us the opportunity to experience. Because I'm sitting right now in our lovely apartment. The AC is set to a nice 70 degrees. I'm going to go sleep in a bed where I have a little pad on it that cools it off at night so I don't get too hot. I got food in my fridge.
Nice.
Yeah, I got food in my fridge. I got Wi-Fi. I got all this. Like, we don't really have an opportunity to experience that much physical discomfort. And so I'm curious if you ever see what you're doing in the gym or see what you're doing with your fitness as intentional. I don't want to say intentional suffering, because I think suffering implies maybe negativity, or maybe implies resistance or some way. But like, do you ever see it as like this is anti-soft time? Like, I'm using this time to really make sure that I don't get too soft around the edges, and kind of keep a little bit of the dog in you. I'm just curious if you ever touch on that.
I think it's important to do something that you don't want to do. One, you get to tell, it's like the old cold bath or cold shower first thing in the morning. I always take a cold shower. I fucking hate it. Every time I get in it, I hate it. I'm usually in there for 3 minutes and then I get out of it. I mean, it's not like going from a warm bed to a cold shower. And when I'm standing there outside the shower, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I'm like, shut up, bitch, and get in the shower. And it's good. Again, I like to start my day by doing something I don't want to do, because it makes it easier for me to go ahead and keep telling my mind to do stuff in the future that I don't want to do. There's a couple workouts in the gym. I do a couple different with pull-ups And I usually end with the wide grip pull up as wide as I can get on the bar. And I go up and I hold it, and I hate it because I can actually feel my bones rubbing together, and I just hate it. But I do it because it's actually something that I say, "Shut up, bitch," and get up there and do it. And if you actually look in the mirror, you can actually see my lips going, "Shut up, bitch," and get up there and do it. And so, but when I'm done doing it, I look in the mirror again and I give myself that look like my dad would give me. Like, I don't have to say anything. I just give myself that look and like, okay, you did it. And then but I think it's cool to accomplish things that you don't want to do or you don't think you can do. Because again, then it goes onto that capability of having that confidence that, yeah, I've never done this, but I think I can do it. I'm going to go ahead and try it. Or you've done it once, just shut up and do it again because it's good for you. So uh, that's how I look at that, is finding something that's hard that you don't want to do and do it, and it'll help you out a lot. Sense about doing something hard?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that's important, man. I think that's important because it's like, you know, this is maybe a little bit of a divergence from it, but people say your workout should be the hardest part of your day, or like some people say, your workout is the hardest part of your day. And I look at these guys that are running businesses. They're
Yeah.
busy with two or three kids. They have, a wife at home. They have a household to maintain. They have all of this stuff going on. And I'm like, your workout is not the hardest part of your day. You know what I mean? If you're doing that kind of stuff, your workout's not the hardest part of your day. The rest of your life is the hard part of your day, right? Showing up as a good
Yep.
father, good husband, calm, present, energetic, whatever it means to you to be those things. That is truly the hard part. And I think making your workout something that is really difficult, but you're doing it intentionally, gives you the ability to show up to those other things that are inherently difficult because of the nature of responsibility and the nature of importance that they carry. It gives you the ability to show up to those things with confidence that you can not only do them, but that you can endure just a little bit more, that you have a little bit more energy to give to them, that you have a little bit more capacity, you have a little bit more strength and capability to give to those things. And a good hard workout, man, just teaches you that, like, that the hard is not to say that it's not really that hard, but that you're really capable of carrying a lot more load or a lot more, stuff, a lot more responsibility than you might otherwise think that you're able to. And I think it's just super super powerful, and it's just something that isn't talked about because everyone's talking about, again, abs and biceps, which is great, but it's like,
Right.
man, there's so much more to it. There's just so much more to it.
Well, you don't know what you can do until you try it, and it's a military, and usually the SEALs are even better at it. That when you work out super hard and you think that you're about to die, you still have about 40% left in your tank. And then if you get through that mark, they talk about when your next level is, oh no shit, I'm dead. I got one more step in me and I'm dying. They say that you have at least 15% more. So a lot of people never even get past 60%. And it's kind of cool to actually push yourself up through a couple of those limits. But I remember reading a couple books about Navy SEALs, and that was the mentality: is that, like, why do they push these guys so far? Because we can actually go a lot further than what we think we can, because your mind actually protects your body. But if you want your mind to get a better body, you got to go ahead and push yourself a little bit harder. So pushing yourself to make it a hard day, pushing yourself to have a hard workout, to do something that you don't want to do, it's hard. That actually makes you a better, stronger person overall. So this is where one of those ones where pain is actually your friend once you get through it. Because
Yeah.
most of the time, pain is an enemy, because usually pain means something's bad. But in this case, if you get through that mental pain, because most of that's mental pain, even though you think it's physical, it's amazing. All of a sudden, you can go ahead and runners talk about their second wind or whatever. And I've only had that a couple times. I've never had it very many times, but I've
Hmm.
had a couple times where I thought I was about to die when we were doing training, and then all of a sudden, it was like, dude, you got a lot of shit left. And then we made it do it again. I never got past the second wall. I never got myself inside the 15% of what they read about. but I got myself up to the second wall a couple times where I'm puking when I'm running, and I just fell down. And I could hardly move. My whole body was cramping. But it does make you want to do stuff that you don't want to do. And like you're talking about being a fatherhood. Uh, my one daughter, Chelsea, was running on a track meet, 3:30 hurdles up in Fort Collins. It was an hour and a half away. I just got back home from work, and I remembered that she was running. I jumped in my car. I drove for an hour and a half to get up there. I parked my car. I ran through the parking lot, and the gun was about to go off, and she looked up and she saw me. The gun went off. She ran her 3:30 in about, I don't know, a minute and a half, whatever it was. I came over, gave her a hug. She was so happy I was there. I drove her an hour and a half home. I didn't want to do that, but I tell you what, that payoff for that 6-second hug, shit, I would have drove across the country. So doing something you don't want to do, when you do it normally, it'll help you when things hit the fan hard and you got to do something and you realize that you can do it. So that was just a personal thing that I have that I still remember sometimes that I don't want to do something going, you didn't want to drive up there, but look what you got out of it. You got her confidence up, and I got 6 seconds of unadulterated awesome love. Man, I couldn't trade that away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a perfect. I mean, that's a perfect example of doing something that you don't want to do because the outcome or the reward from doing it is greater than the difficulty of not doing it, right? I mean, that's like exactly. I think that's exactly what you get when you get hard training, especially if you're really pushing yourself. It's like, all right, last time, it took me 30 seconds to run 200 yards. All right. I'm going to try to get there in 29.9. And you got to push yourself to the absolute limit to do it, let's say. Let's say you got to you really got to step on the gas to get there and give everything you have. I think choosing to do that, going up against that difficulty, feeling it and going and continuing to go through it is
okay. I'm saying goodbye to my grandkids, so sorry.
That's awesome. No, you're good. You're good. I think man.
We'll see you later.
I think it's
sorry
so awesome.
I couldn't talk to you. Okay. Okay, I'm back.
You're good, man. You're good. No, man, I think that's exactly it. Because I mean, dude, you know what's difficult? Getting home from a long day of work and driving to your daughter's track meet. That's difficult. Getting home from a long day of work and going into the backyard to run around with your kids when you're tired. That's difficult, right? Training gives you the ability to not only have more energy for that stuff, but even when you don't have energy, to realize that you can keep pushing when things are difficult. And I think that's what it's all about, man. I think that's what it's all about.
1,000%.
Yeah, dude. Well, dude, I think this is a perfect time to sign off and save it for the next episode, man. I think we covered pretty much everything. So if people don't want to train after listening to this, dude, I don't know what we can do.
Well, for the older people or for the even younger people, I keep telling people, like, you're trying to cheat death, and I'm not trying to be young again. I'm just trying to stay strong for whatever comes ahead in my life.
Yep. Love it, man. Love it. Any thoughts for the people heading into the rest of their week? I don't know what time people are going to be listening to this, but any messages or mottos for the rest of the week? I'm trying to think if I have any. Yeah. Or if maybe we should just let everybody go and sign off.
I would just say, if you can't talk nice to yourself, don't talk to yourself.
Sounds good. We'll leave everybody with that, man. All right, Mr. Geno. Till next time, brother. Appreciate you. Good stuff today, man. I think we did great.
I think so too.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Later.